Man who murdered wife, buried her in shallow grave sentenced to 24 years in prison. Newsroom, Ryan Sugrim, the man who brutally murdered his ex-wife, Zyla Sugrim, in 2019, has been sentenced to 24 years in prison. The ruling was handed down on Tuesday by Justice Damon Young at the Demerara High Court. Sugrim had previously pleaded guilty to the crime last month. Zyla Sugrim, 37, was found dead in a shallow grave inside the compound of the Shell gas station at Crane, West Coast Demerara, where Ryan Sugrim worked. Her body had been shot in the head, burned, and then buried in a garden on the property. Prior to the grim discovery, her family had reported her missing. Zyla was last seen alive on Saturday, May 11, 2019, in the company of her ex-husband. Shortly after, Ryan Sugrim was arrested in connection with her disappearance and subsequent murder. Family members revealed that Zyla had endured an abusive relationship with Sugrim for 15 years before finally escaping in 2018. She managed to flee with 3 of their 5 children, seeking a new beginning away from his control. Her sister-in-law, Nazima Bacchus, told the media in 2019 that Sugrim had isolated Zyla from her loved ones throughout their marriage. It was only in the final months of her life that she had regained some freedom and reconnected with her family. The sentencing marks the conclusion of a tragic case that highlights the devastating impact of domestic violence. Advocates continue to call for stronger measures to protect victims and prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. Mon Repos resident sentenced to 2 years in jail for defrauding canal man of $1.5 million using computer system. Nanda Kishore Rupjener, also known as Niran, of Lot 13434 Block 8 Mon Repos, East Coast Demerara, has been sentenced to 2 years in prison following his conviction for using a computer system to extort a sum of $1,500,000 (GY $1,500,000) from Troy Persad, a resident of Canal No. 1, West Bank Demerara. Rup was arrested on March 11, 2024, after it was revealed that between February 27, 2024, and March 11, 2024, he contacted Persad via Facebook Messenger, demanding payment or threatening to publish compromising photographs and a video of Persad and his wife on Facebook. The case was reported to the Cybercrime Unit of the Criminal Investigation Department, CID, where an extensive investigation led to the execution of a sting operation resulting in Rup's arrest. On May 8, 2024, Rup appeared before Her Worship Ms. Rondell Weaver at the Wales Magistrate Court. He pleaded not guilty to the charge of using a computer system to extort a benefit from another person under Section 19(4) of the Cybercrime Act No. 18. Despite this, he was granted bail in the sum of $100,000. Today, March 18, 2025, after reviewing the evidence, Her Worship Ms. Rondell Weaver found Rup guilty of the offense and sentenced him to 2 years of imprisonment. This case highlights the growing concern around cybercrime and the ongoing efforts of the Cybercrime Unit to combat illegal online activities and protect the public from such threats. Support rally held for Guyanese activists detained in the U.S. A solidarity rally was held this evening at the Square of the Revolution in Georgetown, where several supporters, including opposition political figures, gathered to express their support for detained Guyanese activist Melissa Atwell-Holder, popularly known as Melly Mel. Atwell-Holder was taken into custody on Thursday by agents from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security at her home in New York. She was subsequently transferred to an immigration detention facility in Louisiana. While the exact details surrounding her arrest and detention remain unclear, it is suspected that the matter is related to an alleged immigration issue predating her marriage and reported adjustment of immigration status. Despite her detention, Atwell-Holder has been in contact with her family and supporters, assuring them of her well-being. She is expected to face a U.S. immigration judge in June, with the possibility of a bond hearing being scheduled before that date. The activist, known for her outspoken stance against alleged corruption within the government of Guyana, has garnered significant public attention. Many of her supporters believe her arrest may have been influenced by complaints filed against her by Guyanese authorities, who had previously accused her of cyber-related offenses due to her social media activism. Opposition leaders attending the rally called for transparency in the case and urged the U.S. authorities to ensure a fair legal process. Speakers at the event emphasized the importance of defending freedom of speech and standing in solidarity with activists who challenge governmental actions. The rally saw a diverse group of participants, including civil society representatives and concerned citizens, advocating for Atwell holders' fair treatment and due process under U.S. immigration laws. Organizers have also initiated fundraising efforts to support her legal representation and are calling on international human rights organizations to monitor the case closely. Gonzalez engages President Ali, meets Maduro in Venezuela. Newsroom: Vincentian Prime Minister Ralph Gonzalez, who previously facilitated a peace deal between Guyana and Venezuela, is currently in Venezuela for discussions with President Nicolas Maduro. In a statement from St. Vincent's Agency for Public Information, Gonzalez revealed that he spoke with President Irfan Ali on Monday, urging both parties to exercise calm and restraint and to return to diplomatic efforts. President Ali, however, has expressed his refusal to engage in bilateral talks with Maduro regarding the border controversy, citing Maduro's failure to honor commitments and violations of the peace deal established in December 2023 in Argyle, St. Vincent. Guyana has a long history of negotiations with Venezuela. When these talks stalled, the United Nations Secretary-General referred the issue to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, for a final resolution. Guyana sought the court's protection after Venezuela dispatched a gunboat into its exclusive economic zone 3 weeks ago, where a consortium of oil companies, led by ExxonMobil, has been extracting oil for 6 years and continues to explore for additional reserves. This incident marked yet another act of aggression from Venezuela, a pattern that dates back to the eve of Guyana's independence from Britain in May 1966. At that time, Venezuela rejected the 1899 arbitral award that established the current border. Despite agreeing to a resolution mechanism in Geneva, Venezuela has consistently asserted that dialogue is the solution while ignoring the provision that allows the UN Secretary-General to determine the means of resolving disputes if the countries cannot reach an agreement. In light of rising tensions, Guyana has submitted a request for provisional measures at the ICJ following Venezuela's announcement to hold elections on May 25, just 1 day before Guyana's 59th independence celebrations. These elections aim to appoint a governor and other officials for the contested Essequibo region, which is perceived as a direct challenge to Guyana's territorial claims. At the ICJ, where a substantive case regarding the border dispute is underway, Guyana seeks a final, binding ruling that reaffirms the 1899 arbitral award and clarifies that the Essequibo region belongs to Guyana. Melly Mel's arrest is a U.S. immigration matter, not a political issue, says Attorney General. Newsroom: Attorney General Anil Nanlal has clarified that the recent arrest and detention of Melissa Atwell, also known as Melly Mel, in the United States is strictly an immigration matter and not a political issue involving the government of Guyana. Speaking during his weekly commentary on Tuesday night, Nanlal emphasized that U.S. authorities are solely responsible for Atwell's detention and that the Guyanese government has no involvement in the case. It has nothing to do with the government of Guyana, Nanlal stated. He explained that the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, agency is simply enforcing its immigration laws against individuals who violate their regulations. Atwell, who also goes by the name Melissa Holder following her marriage, is currently detained in Louisiana by ICE. Reports indicate that her arrest is linked to her legal status in the U.S., as well as allegations of fraudulent transactions associated with her name. Despite her claims on social media, questions have now arisen regarding the legitimacy of her U.S. citizenship status. Following her arrest, protests erupted in Guyana on Tuesday at the Square of the Revolution, where demonstrators demanded her release. Among those in attendance were opposition leaders, including Aubrey Norton and Nigel Hughes of the People's National Congress, PNC, and Alliance for Change, AFC, who voiced their support for Atwell. However, Nandlall made it clear that the protests in Guyana should be directed at the U.S. government rather than the government of Guyana. It's the U.S. government enforcing their immigration laws, not us. They should be protesting the U.S. government, not us, he reiterated. He further noted that Atwell's arrest is part of the broader U.S. initiative to enforce immigration policies, which has been strictly implemented since President Donald Trump's return to office. Nandlall also addressed Atwell's history of online activity, where she had made defamatory claims against various individuals, including himself. He described her accusations as fabricated and vulgar. I have never met her, communicated with her, or interacted with her in any way. Yet she posted false claims about me, alleging things I supposedly said about my colleagues in government, Nandlall stated. He added that while he had taken legal action against Atwell for defamation, it was not intended to suppress her right to free speech but to seek redress for reputational harm. It is not about freedom of speech, but rather about protecting individuals from lies, defamation, and personal attacks, he explained. Since Atwell's arrest, a GoFundMe page has been set up to raise legal funds for her case. Some supporters believe her detention is linked to her outspoken criticisms of the Guyanese government. However, Nandlall firmly dismissed these claims, emphasizing that U.S. immigration enforcement operates independently of political activism. ICE is responsible for enforcing U.S. immigration laws, not policing individuals' political opinions, Nandlall concluded. Region 9 police officers trained on election laws and illegal practices. In preparation for the upcoming elections, law enforcement officers from Police Regional Division 9, Upper to Upper Essequibo, participated in a specialized training session focused on election offenses and electoral preparedness. The session, held at the Lethem Police Station last week, was conducted by Superintendent and Attorney-at-Law Delon Fraser. It provided officers with a comprehensive understanding of Guyana's electoral laws and their role in ensuring a free, fair, and transparent election process. Superintendent Fraser focused on the legal framework governing elections, particularly the Representation of the People Act, Chapter 103, and the National Assembly, Validity of Elections, Act, Chapter 104. Officers were trained on key electoral offenses, including bribery, treating, undue influence, personation, multiple voting, and other illegal practices. Additional topics included secrecy violations, fraudulent activities, and maintaining order at polling stations. Emphasizing the critical role of law enforcement, Superintendent Fraser highlighted the importance of police officers and community policing groups in upholding democratic principles during the electoral process. Officers were also briefed on enforcement protocols and best practices for managing election-related offenses. The Guyana Police Force, GPF, announced via social media on Monday that this training is part of a broader initiative to enhance officers' knowledge and preparedness in handling electoral integrity and security. By equipping law enforcement with the necessary tools and expertise, the initiative aims to foster public confidence in the electoral process and ensure compliance with the law. $100,000 cash grant now available at NDCs and RDCs for those who missed distribution. Eligible Guyanese who were unable to collect their $100,000 cash grant during the scheduled distribution in their village can now uplift their check at the nearest Neighborhood Democratic Council, NDC. The Ministry of Finance made this announcement on Monday, ensuring that thousands across the 10 administrative regions of Guyana still have access to their grants. In regions without an NDC, the grant can be collected at the Regional Democratic Councils, RDCs. For residents of Georgetown, grants will be distributed at the National Gymnasium on Mandela Avenue. Beneficiaries must present a valid identification card or passport. These locations will operate Monday to Friday from 9 o'clock HRS to 1600 hours HRS, excluding public holidays. Special provisions have been made for senior citizens, differently abled individuals, housebound residents, and those who are hospitalized. While authorization by a third party will not be accepted, arrangements can be made with the NDC or RDC for home delivery of the grant. Progress of distribution. With over 490,000 checks already distributed, The Ministry of Finance anticipates that 95% of the process will be completed by the end of the month. The $100,000 per adult cash grant initiative, first announced by President Dr. Irfan Ali in October last year, aims to benefit approximately 600,000 Guyanese aged 18 and above. Temporary centers were established across the country to facilitate registration and distribution of the grants. Minister within the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, has reiterated that individuals who have not yet registered or received their checks can now do so at their respective NDCs or other designated offices, ensuring accessibility and transparency. Vice President Bharat Jagdeo has reassured shut-ins that they do not need to stand in long lines at distribution centers. Government systems are in place to have their checks delivered directly to them. While acknowledging some challenges in the distribution process, he noted that the majority of beneficiaries have had positive experiences and commended the efficiency of staff at distribution points. The Ministry of Finance has also been actively updating the distribution schedules on its social media platforms to ensure citizens remain informed. Addressing misinformation. The government has addressed concerns regarding the validity of the checks, following widespread misinformation that led to unnecessary panic. Contrary to false claims that the checks expire within 3 days, the Ministry of Finance has clarified that all issued checks remain valid for 6 months. Citizens are also urged to avoid intermediaries offering to cash their checks for a reduced amount, as this is not sanctioned by the government. The government of Guyana remains committed to ensuring the successful and transparent distribution of the $100,000 cash grant, providing financial relief to its citizens in a fair and accessible manner. President Ali expresses displeasure over slow pace of connecting roadworks for new Demerara River Bridge, no extensions to be granted. President Irfan Ali has strongly criticized contractors responsible for the construction of connecting roads for the new Demerara River Bridge, citing significant delays and a lack of adherence to a 24-hour work schedule. During an early morning site visit, the president made it clear that no project extensions would be granted, emphasizing the need for timely completion. Visiting the site before dawn, President Ali expressed disappointment with the slow progress, pointing out that the roads must be completed to accommodate the increased traffic flow from the new bridge. "I told you all to get this work done in line with a work culture. These contracts were awarded on the condition that people work around the clock to complete the project. Yet, none of the staff or contractors are out here," the president stated. He stressed that residents are already facing significant inconveniences due to ongoing roadworks, and it is imperative that contractors accelerate their efforts to minimize disruptions. "This project will not be extended one day beyond the timeline. Your attitude and work ethic will determine whether this project is completed on schedule. I told you all I would be here, and not even the engineer is present," President Ali added. Progress on new Demerara Harbor Bridge. In contrast, the president expressed satisfaction with the pace of work on the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, which remains on track for completion by the end of this year. He reaffirmed that the bridge would bring much-needed relief to commuters and businesses in Region 3. Addressing traffic and safety concerns. During the site visit, President Ali also raised concerns about the improper parking of heavy-duty trucks along major roadways. He directed law enforcement authorities to enforce stricter regulations to prevent congestion and ensure public safety. The government remains committed to delivering critical infrastructure projects on time and expects full cooperation from all stakeholders to meet these national development goals. Court orders government to compensate wrongfully dismissed housing CEO with 29 months' salary and benefits. The High Court has ruled that the termination of Leland Saul, former Chief Executive Officer, CEO, of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, CHPA, was unlawful. As a result, the government has been ordered to compensate him with 29 months' salary and all outstanding benefits. Acting Chief Justice Roxanne George delivered the ruling, stating that Saul's dismissal by Minister of Housing and Water, Colin Kroll, in August 2020 was beyond the minister's authority and in breach of his employment contract. Saul, who had been on a 3-year contract from 2020 to 2023, was terminated with just 1 month's notice. He subsequently challenged the decision in court, arguing through his attorney, Darren Wade, that the dismissal was unlawful. The Chief Justice determined that the matter met the threshold for judicial review, highlighting that Saul was appointed by the CHPA board and not the minister. As such, only the board had the authority to terminate his contract. The ruling stated that while the minister could have advised the board, the final decision lay with the board itself. The termination of Mr. Saul by the minister was outside of his authority. Therefore, the application to strike out Mr. Saul's case is refused, and his claim that the minister terminated him unlawfully has merit, Chief Justice George ruled. The Attorney General's office was also ordered to pay costs to Saul. Saul welcomes ruling. Following the decision, Saul expressed his satisfaction, stating that the ruling reaffirmed the importance of fairness, due process, and the rule of law. I am deeply gratified by the ruling of the Chief Justice, which has confirmed that my dismissal from ZA was wrongful. This judgment not only vindicates my position but also reinforces the importance of upholding justice in our society, Saul stated. Court rules against former regional executive officers. Meanwhile, the court ruled against 3 former regional executive officers, REOs, from Regions 2, 3, and 5, who also challenged their terminations. The Chief Justice found that their dismissals were in accordance with their contracts, which allowed for termination with 1 month's notice. Since their termination letters did not cite misconduct, the court ruled that the government acted within its contractual rights. As a result, the former REOs were ordered to pay the state $150,000 each in legal costs. This ruling underscores the importance of adherence to contractual and legal procedures in public sector appointments and dismissals. Government suspends mining license in Aranaputa village following public outcry. The government of Guyana has announced the suspension of a mining license granted to foreign company Sol Nascent Incorporated for operations in Aranaputa village, North Rupununi. The decision follows strong objections from Region 9 Chairman Brian Allicock, environmental groups, and local communities. Minister of Natural Resources, Vikram Barrett, traveled to Aranaputa today to engage in discussions with residents and regional officials. During the meeting, he formally announced the suspension of the mining license, acknowledging the concerns raised about potential environmental impacts. Regional Chairman Brian Allicock welcomed the decision, citing the lack of an Environmental Impact Assessment, EIA, or Environmental and Social Impact Assessment, ESIA, prior to the signing of the mining agreement between the company and the Aranaputa Neighborhood Democratic Council, NDC. This suspension should be permanent, Allicock emphasized. Mining in this area would have devastating consequences for the Rupununi wetlands, affecting thousands of residents and the region's delicate ecosystem. He further noted that the proposed mining site is located at the headwaters of key waterways, which could lead to widespread pollution, endangering local fish populations and the livelihoods of communities dependent on these resources. Allicock also urged village councils and NDCs to exercise caution when entering into agreements, stressing the need for wider consultations and transparency. Concerns over consultation process. The initial signing of the mining agreement in early March was witnessed by Minister of Amerindian Affairs Pauline Sukai. However, community members and environmental advocates have since criticized the process, arguing that consultations were limited and did not involve all affected stakeholders. Non-profit organization Visit Rupununi issued a statement expressing deep concern over the mining proposal, emphasizing that mining of this nature has no place anywhere in the Rupununi. The suspension of the license marks a significant victory for local conservation efforts and highlights the government's commitment to addressing environmental and community concerns. The Ministry of Natural Resources has assured residents that further assessments will be conducted before any future decisions on mining in the area are made. FAO calls for urgent action to combat global bird flu outbreak. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, has called for immediate, strengthened action to combat the spread of the H5N1 highly pathogenic avian influenza, which has led to the loss of hundreds of millions of poultry worldwide and increased spillover into mammals. The FAO's urgent appeal follows a high-level briefing with member countries on Monday. FAO Deputy Director General Godfrey Magwenzi described the spread of the disease as unprecedented, with severe consequences for global food security, local economies, and public health. This outbreak has led to significant impacts, including the loss of valuable nutrition, rural jobs, and income, alongside increasing costs for consumers, Magwenzi stated. Guyana's response to the avian influenza threat. President Dr. Irfan Ali has confirmed that Guyana is actively collaborating with international organizations, including the World Animal Health Organization and the United States, to mitigate the spread of the virus. The outbreak has caused a 40% decline in hatching egg production and a 33% drop in poultry meat, creating supply chain disruptions worldwide. President Ali assured that the Ministry of Agriculture is closely monitoring the situation and working alongside Brazil, the world's second-largest egg producer, to ensure stability in the regional poultry supply chain. Global efforts to contain avian influenza. FAO has been at the forefront of avian influenza prevention and response efforts for over 2 decades. To strengthen these initiatives, FAO and the World Organization for Animal Health, WOH, have launched a 10-year global strategy for the prevention and control of high pathogenicity avian influenza. FAO Deputy Director General Beth Beckdahl emphasized the need for a coordinated global response, noting that strong veterinary and animal health systems are critical to controlling the spread of the virus. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. By working together, we can reduce the impact of avian influenza and protect both animal and human health at local and global levels, she said. In recent years, the geographical spread of avian influenza has expanded significantly, with increased spillover into mammal populations and substantial losses in domestic birds, affecting global food security. Wildlife populations have also been severely impacted, with at least 300 newly affected bird species recorded since 2021. FAO's recommended measures to address the bird flu crisis. FAO has outlined several key actions that countries should take to mitigate the risks associated with the ongoing outbreak. Enhance surveillance and reporting. Improve laboratory capacity. Develop and implement preparedness plans, including business continuity strategies. Promote risk management through biosecurity measures. Assess the potential role of vaccination in controlling outbreaks. Strengthen outbreak response mechanisms. Foster regional and international cooperation. Raise public awareness about avian influenza risks and prevention strategies. Call for increased investment and private sector collaboration. Beckdahl reiterated FAO's commitment to global disease monitoring, sharing critical information, and providing technical support to member countries. She also highlighted the importance of public-private partnerships in tackling the crisis. The private sector plays a crucial role in ensuring safe and responsible poultry value chains, advancing vaccine and diagnostic technologies, and delivering high-quality animal health services, she noted. Pandemic Fund Initiatives. During the meeting, FAO officials announced a third call for funding proposals under the Pandemic Fund, hosted by the World Bank. FAO has co-led numerous projects within the fund over the past 2 years, focusing on strengthening disease surveillance, developing early warning systems, and improving health infrastructure. The Pandemic Fund aims to mobilize additional resources, encourage investment from governments, and enhance coordination among international partners to tackle emerging global health threats. Representatives from Indonesia, Senegal, the International Poultry Council, the World Egg Organization, and Health for Animals also participated in the session. FAO urges all stakeholders, including governments, industry leaders, and the public, to take immediate action to mitigate the impact of avian influenza and safeguard global food security and economic stability.